Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Gridiron Zeros podcast.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
We are geared up for this week of 4th of July. It is a Wednesday. We just got right into it this week with the divisional offseason recaps. We're trying to finish these because we did not realize what an undertaking this would be and how long it would be dragged out.
Today's a twofer. It's a twofer.
So we have
today.
a double feature for you today. And next week we'll have a double feature for you again so we can be done with this and stop talking about the past and start looking towards the future because we are right around the corner.
And unfortunately, we have to save probably what our listeners are most looking forward to the most. Sorry, I can't talk today. The Detroit Lions, the NFC North, will be next week. This week, we decided to get the more boring teams out of the way. But honestly, the conversation was pretty good, I feel like.
There was a very good conversation. We had thought that we would talk about the two shitter divisions with the West and the South first, and then talk about the two powerhouses next week with the East and the North, even though the North could probably also be considered a shitter division at this point. But regardless, that's what we're going to be talking about today. No topical conversation, no Lions talk this week. There has not been a whole lot going on in the world of football, but we do recap the offseason for the teams in the NFC West and the teams in the NFC South. So without further hold up, you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, Al, NFC West. I want to start out by saying I don't think there's ever been a bigger fall from grace than this division in the past year.
Uh-oh, stinky.
Especially considering one of the teams was a Super Bowl champion a very short time ago.
And finished sixth from last this past year.
Yeah, they had a wild ride last year.
Not to mention
in a bad way.
The team that had the best start last year, the Arizona Cardinals, finished worse than the team that we just mentioned, right?
Yeah, they were awful.
Were they top three? Yeah, that's right?
Yeah, because they traded back to 9.
Let's start out with them, I guess. The Arizona Cardinals. They added a couple former Detroit Lion quarterbacks in David Blau and Jeff Driscoll.
Pain.
Do any of these names sound of any weight? Do they have any weight for you? Corey Clement, Zach Pascal, a couple offensive linemen, a couple re-signs, which I don't think is exactly what's great. 1-year deal, 1-year deal, 1-year deal on defense, 2-year deal for Kazir White, which I feel like I've heard that name before. Antonio Hamilton. I've never heard of any of these people.
Well, I will say, if you said any of them struck a chord with me, the first two you mentioned with Pascal and Clement.
I would say those are the two.
Only two, because former Eagle and Colt ties with them. So
yeah. Also running back and wide receiver. So I guess it's a little bit better.
But their new coach, Jonathan Gannon, DC from the Eagles, comes over. So that little bit of, you see that every now and then when a coach goes somewhere, they'll bring in guys who he's formerly worked with. 1-year deals for both of them is kind of interesting, but I would guess a lot of those players probably have a history with him, and that's probably why they're coming over. But yeah, no gangbuster signings, and I guess they had some moves in the draft, but really, this offseason for them isn't mega surprising because I think they're anticipating to have a pretty bad year. I don't think they're going to go out there and spend a bunch of big money. They got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. They tried to field trade calls and everything, but no one wanted that contract, so they ended up just cutting him. So yeah, they're definitely making moves that are like Band-Aid moves. I feel like this team is not expecting much this year, so kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they They're also, we didn't even mention the fact that they're going to be without Kyler Murray for a large portion of the year.
That's the reason why. Yeah, obviously that would be the number one reason.
They drafted an offensive tackle at 6 overall with Paris Johnson, which
some
good
saying,
pick.
yeah, some were saying is the best in the class. So
yeah, so that's good. Some edge help in the second, defense help. Michael Wilson, a new wide receiver. Just kind of trying to fill some holes in the numerous spots they have on defense, and probably the most important one with their offense, that offensive line.
So the two quarterbacks you mentioned off the top, former Lions quarterbacks, is that it on their depth chart outside of?
I think they still have Colt.
Okay.
Or maybe not.
Aged 38 now? He's got to be up there. Got to be kind of old.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is up there. He wasn't. I would definitely say that he is still.
He's a good backup. He's an okay backup.
I would say he is 36. Yeah. I did not know that. He is old. I would say that he's definitely in the upper echelon of backup quarterbacks.
I would agree with that. Yeah. But not a guy you're probably going to go out there and win 8+ games with, especially with this roster.
Yeah, no, probably not, especially with this roster. We usually kind of cap these off-season conversations with, do you think the team did enough to get over X?
No.
I don't even feel like, I don't even want to ask the question with this team because they did it. Doesn't matter what the question is. They did.
This feels, as Lions fans, we can definitely compare, and because we know a similar pain here. But this definitely feels the same as the first Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes year. I believe it did a coach GM complete shuffle. I think everybody's new.
I think you're right.
So you're starting from scratch, and they have the quarterback, but he's going to miss a good chunk, if not all the year, because he got hurt late.
Yeah.
And why would they do anything else? I mean, why would they invest a bunch into this season? There's no point.
No. Really.
So what a depressing season for the fans. But hey, you got new unis.
That they did.
They got new unis, which are a slight upgrade maybe, but not doing a whole lot for me. I don't know.
No. The next team did not do any better, and did not do a whole lot with the draft other than bringing in a guy that was in college for 12 years at Georgia, national championship quarterback.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Stetson Bennett. But this might be the shortest list of off-season acquisitions that I've ever seen. They got tight end Hunter Long. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he was acquired in the trade for Jalen Ramsey. And a re-sign with the defensive tackle Marquise Copeland.
Are you serious?
They not only lost Jalen Ramsey, but they also lose Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, and he goes back to the Hawks, so I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah. But what's the expression that the chickens have come home to roost a little bit?
Yeah,
their F them picks mentality.
I was just about to bring that up.
The F them picks mentality, the spend a bunch of money on a couple premium players. It caught up to them last year because I think they were in really good shape to run it back at the beginning of the year, but then injury bug hit pretty bad, and they just kind of the wheels fell off very quickly.
Yeah.
Very wacky end of the season. So yeah, now they're kind of just dealing with the fallout of how they set their system up, and it's not horribly surprising. I'm sad to say. I would think that I would be slightly optimistic getting Stafford, Kupp, and Donald all back.
I was just about to say they still have Stafford and they still have Kupp, so their offense should be fine.
And Cam Akers, I mean, he'll be hopefully good to go, and
he'll be on the sideline.
So they got enough pieces there to do something, and the NFC is relatively open. So
yeah,
maybe
I would agree with that.
They kind of strike me as a team where maybe if everything kind of goes right, they could surprise people. I think a big talking point at the end of last season too was Sean McVay, whether or not he was going to come back or not. And there was a lot of retirement speculation, TV deal speculation, and sure enough, he did come back. I don't think he wanted to end his tenure on such a flat note, so I would expect him to come back with a little more fire, hopefully, and really cook something up for this season. I don't know. They're weird. They didn't have a great offseason, but they're coming back fully healthy, and they have some talent on that roster still, and a great head coach when all things go right. He annoys the shit out of me, but he is potentially a great head coach.
I actually had to look up to see if him or Aaron Donald stepped down or retired, because I could have swore that one of them did, but I guess not. Neither of them did. So yeah, you are right in the idea that the three big names on that team are coming back. Two left, but there's still a lot. They also, am I crazy? Allen Robinson no longer with the team?
Steelers.
Yeah, that's right. So Kupp is on an island now for the most part. I think they might have drafted a wide receiver.
I believe they did.
Yeah.
I believe they did.
So that's going to be really interesting to see how teams try to quadruple cover him, and he somehow still gets open.
Kind of surprised there was no attempt, or maybe there was, but we just don't know about it, at a Robert Woods reunion, because he was a free agent this year. He did sign with the Houston Texans for a 2-year deal, I believe, but I'm surprised he didn't just go back to LA.
Re-sign? I could have.
Well,
Oh no, I'm thinking of Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. Would have been interesting to see because he was always really productive with them. And the year that Stafford got there and they won the Super Bowl, he got hurt, early-ish on, and that's why Odell ended up kind of fitting, in the time he did. So, anyways, just a tangent. But so your question: do you think they did enough to win the division?
No, because I don't think this team has it anymore. I think that year was more telling than people think. Especially considering the fact that Stafford's another year older, and while he is arguably one of the toughest quarterbacks that has ever played the game, I think that injury bug is really starting to show for him. So, did they do enough to get a wild card?
I will say, based just on the off season alone, I will say no.
Mm-hmm.
But they could surprise people, maybe, with everyone being healthy. Like that, I think that's a benefit for them. But just their off-season activities, no, they didn't do enough to improve. But
yeah, excuse me. I think this feels like a 1 foot out, 1 foot in situation with blowing it up, because you get rid of Ramsey. Get rid of Bobby Wagner, which I understand with Bobby Wagner. I did not understand that signing from the get-go. I thought that was a lot of money.
He was productive, though. I mean, he was productive on a bad team.
Yeah.
He had good numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I not so much like he wasn't good for them, but the contract with that team, I thought was a little interesting.
Dude, I gotta say though, I think the Stafford deal is what's aging the worst.
Definitely could be eating them alive,
because they're in bed with that contract for another 4 seasons.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of dead money if they let him go. So
this is a great segue into the next team we're going to talk about. I feel like this perfectly explains my thoughts on Bobby Wagner. He did go back to Seattle. He signed a 1-year deal for $7 million. And I could be wrong, but I think the Rams deal was around 4 years, $50 million, something like that. So the decrease in value just after 1 season, and some writing on the walls there.
Yeah, maybe he took a hometown discount a little bit too.
Yeah. Seahawks also locked in now with Geno, a 3-year, $75 million deal that has a max value of $105 million. They get some center and offensive guard help with former Detroit Lion Evan Brown, who was honestly one of our best backup linemen. I was really bummed to see him go. Jaron Reed 2-year deal. Devin Bush, 1-year deal. Bobby Wagner,
nice.
They bring him back. Julian Love, I don't know that name, to be honest.
Safety from the Giants.
Okay, nice. Draymond Jones, 3-year, $51.53 million contract. Mario Edwards Jr. So a lot of help on the defensive line, which I think they desperately needed.
Sounds like a lot of those are also gap Band-Aid deals too. Doesn't like anything significant.
I would say the linebacker ones, that is definitely Band-Aid. 1-year deal for Devin Bush, 1-year deal for Bobby Wagner.
Does that kind of, well, okay, it's starting with Geno.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they structured this deal in a way that they can get out in 2 years, like kind of like Goff with us. Like, it's a situation where if they did draft their QB of the future, whenever, or if they, have a Brock Purdy situation happen, like they can get out pretty reasonably, and Geno still gets a nice bag for 2 years. So good on him for doing at least that much, and maybe play the whole thing. I don't know, but I guess that kind of is a broader, like implication to me of what this team kind of is. Like, I feel like this is like just roll it back, like another year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just run it back, try and get a little further. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And I feel like that's maybe a situation that they're in because Pete Carroll's the age he is. Like a full rebuild, multiple years, was never really on the table. Even though last year everyone kind of thought like that's where they were going to go, but they actually surprised people. Mm-hmm. And now they're kind of just like, all right, well, we can make the playoffs. And like I mean, they got absolutely scorched by the Niners, but like they can get in. And maybe if they just solidify a little bit, they can go a little further. That's my impression of kind of where they're at. Obviously, they got like Kenneth Walker and Metcalf. They draft JSN, so they got a loaded offense. If Geno can keep it up, but
Lockett too.
Lockett, yeah, always
no fan. K9.
It's loaded. It's a loaded offense if Geno can come back and produce at the same level. So. Feels like they're just rolling it back. They kind of just beefed up in some areas, and in a wide open NFC, I would say this team absolutely has enough in the tank to at least make the playoffs. I don't know how far, but
yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like they are very similar to the Lions, where they were kind of in like this hovering period where they didn't really know what to do at quarterback, and had a good season and decided to run it back. So I completely understand that Geno deal. I think it was a great deal. I think Geno was unbelievable last year, considering all things.
One of the biggest anomalies I've seen, like as a fan, like maybe ever. Like it was very strange.
Some of the best throws I've seen a quarterback make in a while. Like it was incredible what he was doing out there, and the question for the Seahawks has to be: did they do enough to win the division? Because they did the wild card last year, right? You hope that they don't regress, but the question is: did they do enough to win the division this year over the 49ers?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say they did, because their offense on paper right now is loaded.
Yep.
They beefed up on defense in a bunch of key areas, even if it's short term.
Did we touch on Witherspoon?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so I mean, they add what could be a very fitting cornerback there too. Like he is a hard hitter. He reminds me a lot of like that Legion of Boom play style. So I think that could be really helpful for them too. And yeah,
bringing back Bobby Wagner's big.
Mm-hmm.
I think they definitely did enough to win the division. Especially the Niners. We'll get all into that in a second, but they, they're like the most injured team in football almost every year. So
yes,
they're very talented. They got a great head coach, but there is certainly a path where the Seahawks are the best team in this division this year.
Yes, 100%. Great segue into the 49ers. there is one big area looming for this team right now, but real quick, I want to go over who they lost this offseason because there are some names on here. The number one and most important being Jimmy Garoppolo.
Is it though? I mean,
sorry about that. Whammy.
It's definitely not. They did lose Garoppolo though. They lost their right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, to the Broncos. They lost Jimmy Ward, one of their best defensive players, fair to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Houston Texans with
Houston
Tamika
Texans.
Ryans.
Samson Ebukam.
Yeah, you got it. Actually, for once, I think you hit that the first time.
You dumb bitch.
Emmanuel Mosley to the Lions. Charles Omenhue, probably butchering that one, to the Chiefs. Aziz Al-Shahir.
Linebacker, right?
For the Titans.
Yep.
And another offensive lineman, Daniel Brunskill, to the Titans as well. Hassan Ridgeway, I believe one of their starting defensive tackles, also lost to the Texans. That's a lot of players. That's a lot of key players.
Yeah.
They did bring in a lot. Their list out of the three teams so far is by far the most. Brandon Allen, Sam Darnold. We'll get into that in a little bit. Ross Dwelly re-signed for tight end. Chris
Conley, receiver.
Chris Conley, the receiver. Willie Snead resigned. Jake Brendel, he resigned. Joe Falatio.
Oh, come on.
Kerry Hyder, Kevin Givens, John Hargrave, 4-year, $84 million deal that includes $40 million.
Eagles defensive tackle, right?
Yep. Couple more re-signs. Isaiah Oliver comes in at cornerback. Miles Hartsfield signed a deal with them. Tayshaun Gibson re-signed.
God, he's still playing?
Yeah, I know, right? 1 year, $2.9 million deal. And they bring in, via trade, conditional 2025 seventh-round picks, Zane Gonzalez, the kicker, probably to replace Robbie Gould.
Dude, I feel like with Deshaun Gibson, I feel like safeties are like one of those positions, like safeties, receivers, and QB. Like those ones can kind of keep playing past like 34, amazingly.
Oh yeah,
it's shocking.
Absolutely. Your brother was over this weekend, and he reminded me. I had completely forgotten about this. That Ed Reed played for the Houston Texans.
He did.
At the end of his career.
He did.
And he must have been
and the Jets.
Ancient.
Played for the Jets too.
That's right. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. But let's talk about the big thing here, right? Trey Lance goes down week 1 last year. Jimmy Garoppolo
week 2, I think, actually, because there was that Bears game week 1. They lost, but he didn't go down. It was early, though. It was early in the year.
Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, plays for most of the year, goes down. They bring in Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy sets the league ablaze by being Mr. Irrelevant and starting in a playoff game, having a good run, didn't lose up until the NFC Championship. It was a great story.
And played well. I mean, like
well.
He was no chump. Like he played pretty well. So
now you're sitting with Sam Darnold, who only has a 1-year deal. Base value of $4.5 million, max value of $11.5 with incentives. But you're sitting with Sam Darnold, who you bring in via free agency. You're sitting with Brock Purdy, who has a cheap-ass deal as Mr. Irrelevant, but played very well for you last year. And you're sitting here with the guy that you traded up a boatload to go get, but have we seen what we needed to see out of Trey Lance yet? No. I'll finish that sentence for anybody out there. No.
Well, I can give you my way too early Wednesday, July 5th, a month before meaningful things start happening.
Yeah.
I think Sam Darnold's going to start.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the headline here,
I'm drooling,
is that this is Brock Purdy's job.
Yeah.
Until he gets back. But he's going to miss time this year because otherwise he'd be the starter.
Okay.
Hands down. And it sounds like there's already been quotes from Shanahan and John Lynch, and I think they've been kind of playing it coy, but they've made some comments about that Brock earned the job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a soft commitment, but I think when you go on a run like that and you play as well in Shanahan's system as he did, and I think everyone's kind of embraced him.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance has been a complete misfire so far. I think you're just going to, and again, this is all my speculation, but I think you're just going to go with the guy who is going to go out there and win you the most games until Brock gets back, and then Brock just takes the driver's seat. Because if Trey Lance goes out there, number one, and loses a bunch of games, or just doesn't play well, and then that's part of why they lose games, that sets them up in a bad spot.
Yep.
Number two, if he like balls out for whatever reason, he plays great, well, then you got a real situation to figure out, because you got Brock Purdy coming back, and I would guess he's the guy you want. Maybe it's good for you and you can trade him for some value. I don't know, but it makes it more difficult to go back to pivoting to Brock Purdy if Lance is laying it up. So to me, Sam Darnold seems like the safer option, and he's got experience in the league. He's played well sometimes. He's never had a Kyle Shanahan or a 49ers roster around him, so I think he could be just fine for a couple of games. He seems like the safer bet to me. So this could all be complete horseshit and not come to be, but just sitting here right now, that's kind of what I think is going to unfold.
I'll give you the counterpoint view here. The amount of picks that you gave up to go draft Trey Lance, it is now or never that you figure out what you have with him.
I want winners.
Right? Because if you feel like you are going back to Brock Purdy no matter what, and it doesn't have to be, a 3-game experiment. You can put him out there for 2 games, and I feel like you can get a pretty good understanding of where Trey Lance is at with the NFL. And then you can switch to Darnold until Brock Purdy comes back, because I would assume Darnold would be better than Trey Lance if Trey Lance is sucking it up.
I just think the problem is that somehow if he goes out there and plays poorly, I think his value could go even lower for them to get rid of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This has already been a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Which is fine because it happens. It was a big swing and a miss for sure.
Crushing swing and a miss.
But you know what? They got Brock Purdy. So, ultimately, it could work out.
It could cancel out.
It could work out. I would think maybe he goes out there and he plays really well, and then you boost his value a little bit and you move on. I just feel like they're kind of over the whole experiment. It kind of just went awry, and Darnold is a safer week 1 bet. I might be totally wrong. Probably will be, but that's kind of how I feel about it sitting right here, July 5th.
Yeah, and the only thing I somewhat disagree with in that is that they're over the experiment already. The only reason I think that is because we haven't, and everybody knows I'm the biggest advocate for calling the 49ers dummies when they took Trey Lance. But we really haven't seen too much of him quite yet, right? Like, he got injured in week 2 last year and was out for the entire year. And we didn't see much of him in his rookie year, rightfully so.
But you saw enough with Brock Purdy. I did
100%.
So
100%.
To me, that I don't care at this point. I have a guy who's like who can do it all, who's like perfect for the system. Like, if I'm them, I'm going, I don't care if Trey Lance is a fit or not. Like, we got a guy who works.
Yeah, I 100% agree that Brock Purdy's the guy. Until proven not, Brock Purdy should be starting for the team. But I think this is the perfect time to confirm or open that door back up with Trey Lance.
So
at least for a couple games.
I do agree with that. If you're gonna do it now. But let's talk about the rest of the roster really quick, because this is the story that always dominates that team. But this year especially, it's pretty spicy. But yeah, this roster kind of lost a lot of pieces.
Lost a good amount, but I would say the core is still there, right?
Your aces are still there. Your Bosa, your
Debo,
Fred Warner, Debo,
Kittle.
So similar to the Rams.
Who's that other dick linebacker that they have? Guy's a fucking asshole.
Greenlaw.
Greenlaw, thank you. That guy's such a dick.
Well, similarly to the Rams, they've got their nucleus there. They're definitely more talented than the Rams, no doubt. Now.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they're a team that I remember last year just being off the hype train with them pretty quickly. I'm like, forget these guys. Like they always are kind of the same. Just get injured, and it's always kind of a big fart in the end. But no, they rallied and they had a great year last year overall, and they were one bad injury away from maybe being in the Super Bowl.
Didn't even mention Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, right.
Completely forgot about him. Yeah, no, their offense is still very well put together. The offensive line, I guess I would say, is the one interesting aspect with that. And then, yeah, probably the defensive line, which, I mean, you still have that anchor with Bosa sitting there.
Which I believe contract situation is starting to become a thing. So,
oh, interesting.
So,
and on the offensive line side, you still have Trent Williams, so that anchor is still there, right? Like they still have the anchor for those lines, and they're still developing talent too, like Hufanga, Halafoguanga.
I'm sure that's not it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Dump it.
The safety out of USC from last year, who was basically a mini Troy Polamalu, was fantastic, and they're still figuring it out.
But most importantly, and this will be my last note on it, even though we barely touched on Christian McCaffrey at all. Yeah. You have Shanahan and you have Lynch, and they have been consistently excellent for a few years now. So you've got all the pieces there to make another run. You lost a couple, but I think they'll be fine.
I think they will be too. With this team, you have to ask, barring injuries, did this team do enough to win, not make, but win the Super Bowl this year?
Offseason alone, I'm going to say no.
I would agree.
Because I think they're a worse team on paper, and they have a QB issue per usual. But yeah, I would say no to that, but yes to winning the division because they are still very talented.
I would say yes to winning the conference. I think it's really a 2-horse race at the moment. So I can easily see them going on to winning the conference.
So let's really quick.
Grades.
Yeah, because we're doing the second half of the show with the other division. So let's do these ones first, and then we can jump full in. So starting at 4 for you.
There's no LA. They lost big names, and they
do not have the capability to reload. Yeah.
They brought back guys, and they brought back, they kept guys from quitting their job, is what I'll say about them bringing back those other 3. They did not get anything in exchange for Jalen Ramsey, which I get, but still, it really sucks. I would say that's probably, and I guess everybody probably knows who my third team is going to be, and I'll explain why I put that team above the Rams here.
All right, well then, let me say that team, being the Arizona Cardinals, is my 4th.
Yeah.
Just because, the Rams, they might be kind of in a holding pattern, but they've got the core there to go do something maybe. The Cardinals made 0 big impact moves this year to make anything happen this year except maybe tread water for some games. This roster did not really improve. In fact, they lost like DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have Kyler Murray, not a fault of a move that they made or anything, but this is a worse roster than it was last year, no doubt. So I would have to put
and JJ Watt too.
Yeah, retired.
I would agree with that. The reason I have the Cardinals above the Rams is, I agree with everything you say. The Rams also lost some pretty big names. They did retain that big three, but that's really all they have at the moment. And the Cardinals got a first-round pick and brought in young talent, where the Rams
True.
did not. And that's why I put the Cardinals at 3.
Oh, I like that take. So I'll give you that, but I'm going to put the Rams 3 for me.
Yeah, and I assume it's for all the reasons we just talked about.
Yeah.
Who do you have it to?
I'm going to say Niners. Niners at 2, because they did lose a couple guys, and I think just the guys that they brought in. I think that Hargrave deal was nice.
I would say that's like the big one.
He's a good player, so that's a good move for them. I mean, look at the Eagles, though. They're just like, yeah, go ahead, bye. Like
we got another guy in here. He's much younger, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah,
you can have
fell to us in the draft. Yeah. So, but yeah, the Niners they kind of they regressed maybe a little bit on paper on the roster, but they're still really damn good. So I can't put them below the other two, even though their offseason was not super duper eventful.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Darnold was, I will say, a nice pickup for them.
Yeah, 1-year deal with a base value of $4.5 million.
It really is good for him too, because if he balls out for a little bit, if he gets an opportunity,
he'll probably get another one.
That's a career saving, situation for him. So I think that's a good move for both parties, and I think he'll surprise people by being the week 1 starter. Right now, that's what
I am aligned with you. I would put them at 2. I think they lost a lot of big names on defense, but retained a lot of depth names.
They got to make room for Bosa, dude. I mean, that's just where they're at.
Yeah.
Give me money. Money me. Money now.
And they bring in Sam Darnold as reassurance for that quarterback position, which I thought was smart. But all in all, that team, I agree. They regressed on paper. But did they regress on the field? We'll have to wait and see.
So Seahawks number 1. I would totally agree. I think they are, for this year, set up very nicely. If everything works out with Geno, again, I think they're set up very, very nicely. I think JSN is going to be really good. Kenneth Walker really stepped up quick. Yeah, so he's going to be really good. And defensively, they plugged a bunch of holes. They kind of improved a little bit all over the place and looking solid. So
they plugged, they kind of band-aided where they needed to. They improved where they needed to in the draft. I thought they had a great draft. And I think the most important thing was you took the league by storm with this guy that you had sitting on your bench for the last 4 years, and he played out of his freaking mind all the entire season. And you get him on a 3-year deal. You get him some more time to really prove himself. And you do it by not breaking your cap in years to come. Yeah. Unless he somehow does hit that max value, which I think that doesn't really apply to the cap. Who knows? We don't know how cap works here.
That contract too is a win-win, because I mean the dude took his shot when he had it, and he made the most of it. And I think he's going to play well for them, and I think it's going to work out for both sides in the end.
Couldn't agree more. Seattle on top. All right, let's change gears.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
Okay, Al, now that we got our engines started and revving to go.
For a division that is absolutely not deserving.
I cannot believe, but this is the most mediocre division in football. They're not bad, but they're definitely not good.
Off-season wise, there's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about in this frickin' division. Looking at last year's standings, I did not realize. I knew it was close. I did not realize that it was this funny in the way that things played out. 7-10, 7-10, 7-10, 8-9. Falcons, Saints, Panthers, Bucks.
So funny.
The definition of mediocre.
We'll get to them a little bit, but my God, the Panthers surprised a lot of people later in the year last year.
They certainly did.
Because we were all
they
picking them to
surprised
be.
us.
Yeah, we were picking them to be one of the worst by a mile.
All right, so we're starting out with the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder now has the reins. They bring in Jonnu Smith.
Wow. You said his name like it was like a really impactful big signing, but the dude has unfortunately been relegated to irrelevance ever since he got to New England. So
yeah, 100% true.
I need a fucking boost, and I need it now.
They got a lot of team or big names on here. How they play out, I'm not sure. Bud Dupree 1 year, Calais Campbell 1 year, Trey Flowers 1 year, Mike Hughes and Jeff Okuda 1 year, both former Detroit Lions. The big one, Jesse Bates, 4 years, 64.02.
You tell me Trey Flowers wasn't the big one, the big Kahuna?
Isn't this guy like 40 years old
I'm
now?
just joking. He's obviously not the big fish.
Yeah, he's only 28. Wow.
No, Jesse Bates is a huge signing.
Jesse Bates, definitely the huge signing. We also have to mention Bijan.
Oh yeah, man.
Bijan Robinson.
Definitely gonna talk about him.
Cordell Patterson, I believe, is still there. And didn't they have one other running back that was taking the league by storm?
Tyler Algier had a really nice year last year too.
So they also bring in Mac Hollins, Kadero Hodge, 1 year wide receivers. Is this Scotty Miller? There's no way that there's a Scott Miller and a Scotty Miller.
No, it's Scotty Miller. Yeah.
So they get some help at wide receiver for the most part. Drake London had a good year, not a great year, nowhere near rookie of the year. And we're still waiting on the athletic freak. Kyle Pitts. Thank you. God, his name is forgettable.
Did you draft him in fantasy or something?
Oh, fuck him.
Yeah, because you really don't like that guy.
No, he's a waste of space on that team. Taylor Heineke also signed a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million. So if Ridder doesn't work out, which I can't believe nobody is giving Heineke a shot.
I can. I mean, he was on a roster.
So scrappy.
He was on a roster in Washington where it was good enough to make some noise, and he played okay. He played. Sometimes he played really scrappy and won those some games, but definitely not like franchise changing quarterback, because otherwise Washington would have held on to him and committed to him. But when they don't do that speaks volumes, because they are the epitome of dysfunction at quarterback, amongst other areas. Yeah. But yes.
So if Ridder doesn't work out, they do have a very solid backup in Heineke. I would say he's also in that upper echelon of backup quarterbacks. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Some help out on the offensive line, some help on the defensive line. They did a lot this offseason. Anything that stood out to you?
Honestly, we kind of talked about it earlier, but two major players for me kind of showed that this team feels like they're ready to make something happen. Number one, drafting Bijan Robinson, because by far the most luxury pick in the top 10.
Yeah.
Because he's a running back. He's, got the potential to be special and be really, really good. And on a team like the Falcons, where ground and pound is their identity on offense for the most part, it really could work.
Yep.
But definitely a luxury pick.
Yep.
And the other guy being Calais Campbell.
Yep.
Because obviously very old veteran.
Very old. Very
productive though. And very, very highly respected in the league.
36.
And I'm sure that multiple teams probably wanted in on, him being on the roster for a season, and he chose to go there. So
that is extremely odd, isn't it?
I don't think it is. I think they, even last year, I think they kind of were hanging in a few games. You kept saying they were scrappy last year. Like they surprised some people.
Knew how to cover. That's for damn sure.
And they bring in like Jesse Bates. Like they are loading up, and they have a very winnable division. So
that is very, very true.
I think they did I think they kind of think they're ready now. I think they're ready to make a run at this division. How far past that? No clue. But they definitely can take this thing.
I would agree with that 100%. I would say that the question for all four of these teams is, did they do enough to win the division? And we'll start there. We'll take baby steps with this division. I don't think we need to go any higher than that. But, one thing that really stood out to me is not only are they kind of bringing in well-developed or well-seasoned players, they're also taking a couple chances.
Couple swings. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Obviously, the biggest one that could pay off for them is Jeff Okuda.
Well, if you remember, back in that draft, they really wanted Jeff Okuda. Funny that he ends up there for, what was it, a third-round pick or something like that? Oh, not even, geez, that's pretty low. Yeah. But, yeah, that's definitely a big swing for sure. I mean, it's not going to cost him a whole lot because he's relatively cheap still, and it was a low-ish draft pick, but it's a swing for sure.
Yeah. Definitely low risk, high reward sort of deal for the Falcons there. Okuda has really not shown too many flashes up until his third season. And even in that third season, he is on and off the field constantly. So if he can stay healthy, who knows? He might be a huge help to that secondary. This is a very serviceable player.
This is the best thing for him.
Oh, yeah.
To get a change of scenery because, my God, his tenure in Detroit was not working out. No. So this is a good chance for him, too. No. Speaking of guys who are kind of a gamble, I would say Desmond Ridder is an enormous gamble, to be honest.
And I like what they did. They bring in a good backup with Heineke. But I agree. Ridder, did he show us anything last year?
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think he did anything last year where we were like, wow, they really have somebody here? I went back and watched some throws, and I watched some plays that he had throughout the year, and I don't know. He's fine. Like, he's very, like, potentially, like, system quarterback guy, and he's not overly athletic. He doesn't have a great arm, not overly mobile, but, like, he's good enough in a lot of areas. And, hell, if he can make Brock Purdy work, then why not him? Another year in the system, maybe it'll work.
I was going to say he is in a good situation because he doesn't have to throw the ball a lot. He can hand the ball off, 30, 35 times a game even. So that's really good for him. When they are behind, though, that is where we're going to really start to see what can he do. So
Heineke is a good insurance policy.
Yeah. I really like that insurance policy. I think that's very smart for them. Did Atlanta, you know what? Let's change it up because I think actually all four of these teams were extremely capable of winning their division last year. Just some things that didn't go their way. Did Atlanta do enough to run away with the division this year?
Yeah. I'll say they did.
I think so too. I think
had to think about it though.
Yeah.
It's not a guaranteed slam dunk, but I think, yeah.
Maybe. I think they did enough to their defense where it can keep them in games. And I think the addition of Bijan Robinson could be a game breaker for this team, considering how insanely good they were at running the ball. They were so good that they made Cordell Patterson relevant again.
Right, a 30-year-old converted receiver and a fifth-round draft choice for those year. That's pretty insane. So this is a high-end talent. They could really be special with him.
Absolutely. But if Ridder does not throw the ball very well, it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly teams start putting 8 guys in the box on 1st and 10. All right, Atlanta down.
A lot to talk about with them.
Yes, very busy. A lot to talk about with this next team as well. Starting out with the biggest splash early on in this offseason. Derek Carr now signed a 4-year, $150 million contract with the New Orleans Saints. No trade clause. Has $100 million total in guarantees. On top of that, Jameis Winston decided to stick around.
Crazy.
They still have what's his nuts
Taysom.
Taysom Hill, if neither of those guys are working out.
Swiss Army knife.
I didn't know that Michael Thomas still played football. He signed a new 1-year, $10 million contract. The rest of these, Foster Moreau, tight end. Kalen Saunders.
I don't really think they were in a great cap spot to give out a bunch of deals besides those two.
These are all very low. Jonathan Abram. This guy's still in the league?
Raiders legend.
Oh, no, we're thinking of somebody else.
Okay.
This guy's only 26. Let's talk about Derek Carr. This is a fresh start. Oh, I'm sorry. I also forgot to mention they signed a running back, Jamal Williams.
Oh, yeah.
3-year, $12 million deal.
Someone we might know.
Yeah. Let's talk about Derek Carr, though. How does this change New Orleans in the grand scheme of things? Does it make them a contender? A lot of teams, I'm seeing a lot of posts. It's chalked. Give it up. The New Orleans Saints are winning the division this year because of Derek Carr.
See, I was going to say the opposite. I've seen a lot of comments saying wholly overpay, mid.
Wow.
Not going to welcome to 7-9.
Ooh.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
How many Raider fans do you follow?
That's true. Well, it's certainly a big commitment to him. I think he has been well above average at times, very good at times. And if you were in the thick of this division with Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Ian Book, and Taysom Hill all playing quarterback at various times, I think Derek Carr is an upgrade over any of them. I don't think that's a question.
Even Jameis post LASIK, which I will eat some crow on around this time last year. I was very high on him, and it did not pay off. It turns out that Jameis needed a little bit more than LASIK, so that's unfortunate.
But to your question of is it enough to like set the world on fire and make an actual Super Bowl run?
Super Bowl run.
I don't know, because Derek Carr's a nice player, but like, what has he done in his career that screams to you this guy can carry the team to the promised land? Like, not a whole lot.
You think about it.
He had one playoff appearance in his whole career. So like Stafford level, like numbers worse actually.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Is this team that much better than the Raiders?
No.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, Devontae Adams is better than Michael Thomas. Olave's good. I'll say that. Kamara's good. But they had Josh Jacobs last year.
Yeah,
so
who was the best running back in football. Jamal Williams, I mean, he led the league in running touchdowns, but how much of that was the fact that I think more than half of those came from 1 yard out, and he was playing behind arguably the best line in football right now.
Yeah, it was schemed up for him, but that's a great 1-2 punch though. Kamara and him.
A good 1-2 punch.
I mean, if they can both stay healthy and but they're both in their over 25 range. So I don't know. We'll see if
on the tail end
keep moving, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of juice for this team. To me, this team in this division. Well, actually, there's one other team who I have even less juice for, but yeah, these guys I'm not feeling as much as. I don't think adding Derek Carr is going to like completely flip the league upside down. Like otherwise, I think there'd be a lot more teams at the table trying to make that happen, and really, it never felt like he was going to go anywhere else besides here at the Jets. So
yeah, true. I think an interesting question would be. If you're Jameis Winston, why the hell are you still re-signing with this team at this point?
Because where else would he go that would be a benefit this year?
I don't know. There's got to be somewhere else. Why don't you go back to Tampa?
He'd be if they wanted him back, sure, but he'd be a backup wherever he goes, and he's a backup here. Like maybe I don't know, something happens, he goes in and plays, but like I don't know, he's kind of a backup at this point. I mean, I don't think
guess
there's a lot of opportunities for him out there. If I'm a team, I'm not really looking to roll the dice on Jameis Winston as my starter. Like, no. How'd that work out for New Orleans? Not good.
Not good. Yeah, you bring up some good points. Did this team do enough to run away with the division? I feel like I already know your answer.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say no. But they are improved with quarterback, at least. I don't know about the rest of the team, but Jamal Williams is nice too. I don't know. Defensively, that's more your forte, but I don't know. Don't really feel like it.
I don't really feel like it either. A lot of this stuff on their signings feels very Band-Aid fueled. So I agree with you. I think this team stays the same or regresses at best this year. So tough scenes. But let's talk about a more interesting team. Let's talk about Carolina. They trade up with Chicago. They go and get their guy. They bring in Bryce Young. They bring in Andy Dalton.
They do lose DJ Moore in that trade.
They lose DJ Moore. They bring in Damiere Byrd. They bring in DJ Chark. They bring in Adam Thielen. They bring in Hayden Hurst. They bring in Miles Sanders. They lose Deontay Foreman also to the Bears. They lose Christian McCaffrey, as we all know. That didn't happen over the offseason. Is Bryce Young tall enough to win in this league?
I think he is. I think he'll be fine.
I think it's always so funny when you have a short quarterback and media personalities will purposely take a video where he is looking just so extremely short next to the offensive lineman. And it's always captioned, can he even see over them?
Yeah, and then the helmets they wear make them look like children on the field a little bit. Yeah.
Bryce Young will definitely get that Kyler Murray treatment at some point where Kyler Murray is like just shrunken way down. The all-time picture, all-time favorite photo.
I'll say Bryce Young's
exciting.
Sorry, I cut you off. Please say that again.
It's all good. I just was capping it off with this team is exciting. This team is exciting.
I will say, compared to Kyler Murray, Bryce Young definitely seems more likable than Kyler Murray, for sure.
I mean, that is not hard to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, I think the biggest addition besides Bryce Young, I mean, Frank Reich, head coach. Yeah. That's enormous. To me, that's I actually think I love it more than just about any of the coaching changes this offseason.
Yeah.
But I think besides D'Amico Ryans, Texans, I think it might be my number one coaching change. I did not know that he was actually the first quarterback in the history of the Panthers ever. Like way back in the day, like in the 90s, like when they became a franchise, he was their first quarterback.
That's dope.
Which is funny. But yeah, he's just like, it's just like the Texans for me, where it's like they have an adult in the room. They have like a guy who's just like, he's solid. He's going to solidify this thing. Same thing as Doug Peterson to the Jags. Just like, maybe he's not the flashy Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, like the Sean McVay. He's not like the young guru guy, but like he's just an adult in the room who's going to get production out of your players. There's not going to be any drama, no bullshit. They're not going to overpay a giant Matt Rule deal again. Yeah. And this team was kind of rocking and rolling later in the year last year. So like make a big swing at quarterback, make a swing at head coach, and some interesting signings. And like, yeah, this team is kind of fun. There's like, I have some hope for them this year.
I like the fact that they finally just said, you know what, fuck it. There are generational talents at quarterback in this draft class. Let's just trade up and go get one. Let's stop doing this freaking shuffle with unproven guys or guys that we think we can fix, that have shown flashes. Let's just go and get the guy already.
Yeah, funny enough, I brought the Texans, but they kind of said the same thing.
Yeah,
they were like, let's just stop. Let's just stop the charade. Like, let's
invest in somebody and give them a couple of years to see if it works or not.
And those two guys in this class, I know there's so many moments in all the build to the draft where it's like you drag everybody through the mud trying to make them not seem like they're worth a top 5 pick at quarterback or whatever. But like these two guys seem like the safest bet in this draft. Like
Stroud and
Young, yeah, I'd say compared to anybody else. Like next guys up were Anthony Richardson and Levis. So
I'd say Young, 100%. Stroud, I'm iffy on that guy. Very iffy on that guy. I think they did a good job bringing in some talent for him to use. It's nothing exceptional, right?
You know, you mentioned some of the receivers. I also heard on NFL radio that I forgot what show it was, but they were kind of talking. They had an interview with someone on the Panthers offensive side of the ball, coordinator wise, that they were talking about. Tell me if you remember this name, Laviska Shenault. Remember him? So they were kind of talking about how big and physical he is, and they might try and use him in some different ways. And I don't know, maybe more of like you see like those Deebo Samuel like design runs. Like I don't know, maybe he's something different this year for them. He was kind of a bust for the Jags, but he was like a first round pick back in the day, I believe. So
yeah,
some talent there.
That's interesting. I like the idea that they bring back, or they didn't bring back, but they have Chark now. Thielen, who I feel like will be a really good safety blanket.
Man, I completely forgot that they brought him in.
Yeah.
100%.
3-year, $25 million deal. Chark only got a 1-year contract with $5 million guaranteed, so he actually regressed in money.
Well, he's kind of a prove-it player right now,
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, he did some nice things with the Lions and the Jags, but he's definitely a wait and see. He's the kind of guy, if he has a nice year this year, he could probably go get a couple-year deal and make some money, but I don't think he's worth sinking multiple years into at this point. So Thielen's interesting, though, because he's definitely, I mean, what is he, 31, 32? Like he's
probably in his 30s by now.
So he's definitely on the back half of his career.
I like it, though. I feel like, you bring in a veteran wide receiver to help make the quarterback comfortable right out the gate.
He's a red zone monster,
Yeah.
so he's productive there. It's something. I don't know. He definitely doesn't make sense in Minnesota anymore, so he was dominant for a long time. We'll see how it works out. But
it's the same thing with Hayden Hurst. I think Hayden Hurst was a really good signing for them too. It's not a flashy tight end. It's not somebody that you're going to invest all these years of money into. But it's a guy who has played with great quarterbacks. He's played with Joe Burrow. He played with the great Marcus Mariota,
of course,
in Atlanta.
Did he ever play with the great Joe Flacco when he was drafted in Baltimore? Or was that Lamar?
Probably. Even if it wasn't, then it was Lamar, former MVP. So I think that's a great signing. They do a couple signings with the offensive line. They bring back some guys from the defense and re-signings. I like the Von Bell signing for them. I like the signings all around. They bring in Miles Sanders as a running back, who is going to be, in a dynamic offense with Bryce Young. I feel like that's going to be exciting.
And also, reason I heard in an interview with Miles Sanders why he chose Carolina, funny enough, is Deuce Staley is now in Carolina also. Was with the Lions, not anymore. Apparently they have some history together.
From the
Eagles, right.
Yeah. So, that makes perfect sense.
But yeah, man, this team's offseason was very, very good. Really impressive. So
I would agree. What wasn't an impressive offseason? Tampa Bay.
Misery, misery, misery. That's what you've chosen.
The fun down in Tampa is officially over. Tom Brady has retired for the second time. And you know what? I'll go out on a limb and say that's probably not his last time.
I think he's part owner of a team now, so it has to be. He's part owner of the Raiders.
Are we sure that that's a rule?
I would think so. That's like, you can't be an executive and play, I don't think. I don't know that for a fact, but I would guess that probably won't.
It feels like something Tom Brady would do, though. Right?
No, yeah, he would be the guy.
Not to mention the fact that he's Jimmy's boss now.
It's so funny.
Funniest thing about Garoppolo and Tom Brady now being part owner of the Raiders is that one clip of Jimmy getting to the Raiders facilities and he's walking through like their Hall of Fame hallway, and he walks past the tuck rule photo, and he goes, "It was a fumble." And I went back as soon as I heard that Tom Brady was part owner. I was like, Jimmy, get the fuck out of there, man. He's going to kill you. But the fun is done in Tampa.
Go yourself.
They lose Brady, and I don't know why the hell Brady would ever want to come back to that team, considering they went 8-9 last year and sucked for a lot of it. They bring in Baker Mayfield, 1-year deal up to $8.5 million. They bring in John Wolford.
Well, don't forget they also have
Kyle Trask.
Kyle Trask. So
there's a 3-man rotation.
Yikes.
Seeing who can get the funniest clip on social media between the three of them right now.
Some of those throws at OTAs have been bad.
It's not looking promising.
No.
So that is worrisome. They bring in Chase Edmonds on a 1-year deal. Matt Flyer, offensive lineman. Greg Gaines, defensive lineman. Levante David re-signed a 1-year, $7 million deal. That's good for them.
I thought he was going to go somewhere else for sure.
I thought so too. They re-signed an edge. They bring in a corner. They signed a kicker. That's it.
Yeah, I was falling asleep over here as you were kind of talking about it a little bit. So
I'm surprised I didn't talk myself into sleep. What a dookie ass offseason.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that we've kind of talked about, like the Rams, the Niners. Like they still do have a lot there. You giving me a look? Not.
What?
I mean, they still got Mike Evans. They still got
Who's
Shaq
throwing in the
Barrett.
ball?
I know. Baker. It'll be Baker. Is this anybody else's job? I mean, really?
At this point, I'd say, fuck it. Trask, go show us what you got.
I don't
Wasted
know.
a first round. No, he wasn't first round, was he?
No. He was definitely not a first round pick.
So at this point,
Yeah, I just don't think. I don't know how you go out with anyone else but Baker at this point. The dude's actually started in the NFL. Was a first round pick, the first overall pick in the draft. He's done some good things in the league. Even with the Rams last year, he had a couple good games. Like, I don't know. He's been in dysfunction his entire career, though. So that's not been good for him. But I don't know. Their offseason's very, very meh.
extremely.
They definitely did not improve in any areas. They kind of were treading water or regressing, which isn't great.
But you know what? I'm pissed off just talking about this team. I'm going to segue right into the rankings.
Well, let me give 2 more positives for them.
Okay.
Number 1, they're wearing the Creamsicle jerseys again this year. Bring those back.
That is a positive.
Second positive, big announcement on the podcast. Yours truly will be at Week 6 versus the Detroit Lions at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, where they're wearing said Creamsicle jerseys. So how about that? Boots on the ground.
That is a positive.
Exclusive update.
That is a positive.
Hopefully it will be a game the Lions will smash the shit out of them because they're not a good team. We'll see.
You know, I don't know if you can, but I take a towel into the stadium with me.
Like the Lions towel?
Any kind of towel.
Okay.
Because it's going to be humid as shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking for myself how I would be, and I know I would be drenched in sweat by the end of that game.
Good note.
Especially because it's outside.
Yeah, good note.
But that would be a lot of fun now.
But that's the best I can do here. Overall, yeah. It's either treading water or regression.
It literally had nothing to do with the team itself.
Well, we're giving our thoughts and grades. So those are factors for me, I guess.
This team has to be dead last. You can't give me another team here.
Yeah, they're dead last for sure.
This team got significantly worse this offseason.
Yeah, even if you don't like the Derek Carr signing, you can't go out there and say that he's a worse quarterback change than anyone Tampa Bay is going to have.
I want to stop talking about them. That's how disgusted I am with that team right now.
All right, number 4.
I think I might pick them to finish dead last this year.
Poor Todd Bowles.
Number 3, do you have somebody in mind?
Yeah, I'm just going to say New Orleans because I like Derek Carr. It's definitely an upgrade. I think they will be a smidge better with him. Will it result in more wins or a playoff berth or anything beyond that? It's kind of hard to say. Derek Carr has not really been a game changer quarterback in his career. He's just been very solid, above average, and at times shown flashes of excellence. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, that's your biggest move. And Jamal Williams is good, but I don't know. This team's pretty meh to me. Not as meh as the Bucs, but they're not too far off.
I agree. I think the big difference, I think the only difference between the Saints and the Bucs is Derek Carr. Like, they got a quarterback, right? I don't like the signing of Michael Thomas. I think that's a bit foolish at this point.
He's kind of got to go out there and prove it this year a little bit. He's fallen out of grace big time.
Dude, I feel like I have not watched that guy take a snap of football in 3 years at this point.
Dude, there was a point though where he was like,
he was number one.
Unbelievable.
He holds the record for most receptions in the season.
Yeah, he was unbelievable at points in his career.
He was slant boy. The Jamal Williams signing, not bad. I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah.
The rest feels like Band-Aids. Nothing you can really do about that at this point, but to each their own. Saints, just a little bit sexier than Tampa Bay.
Yeah, agree. This 1 and 2 though, this is tough. This is really tough. Actually,
this is really tough. I actually think that both these teams did a really wonderful job this offseason.
I actually think they both could potentially deserve that one spot. You can make a total argument for either one of them, and it would be justified for sure. But number 2, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Atlanta. I really like what they did in the draft. I think this team got a lot better this offseason, and I think they kind of knew what they wanted to do. They didn't go out and sign a big wide receiver. They got serviceable wide receivers because they know that they're going to be running the ball a lot. They bring in a very, in my opinion, one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. In case this guy does not work out. And then they got a little mixture of the past, present, future in defensive players with Campbell, Jesse Bates, and Jeff Okudah. Mike Hughes, I believe, is still very young. Trey Flowers is very young. So they got young, serviceable defensive players now in that secondary that was atrocious last year. I think they did a good job. I think they're a step closer to getting a good team again. And the only thing that kind of worries me is Ritter at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty much verbatim what I was going to say. I mean, I think I kind of mentioned earlier, the really telling signs of just taking a luxury pick swing with Bijan and Calais Campbell, bringing him in. Like, that kind of showed me where they're thinking they're at right now. And I think they did a lot of moves to support every area of their team. They got a good coach. He's done a lot with a little in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm going to put them 2 also, just really because they still need to figure out the quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and say that Desmond Ritter is like going to go out and be a baller. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be fine. At best, fine. Like, really, could be eating my words in a couple months here, but yeah, they didn't solve the most important area. There was opportunity. I mean, they could have been a Derek Carr team. They could have been a Bryce Young team. Like, they had chances to go do that stuff and they didn't. So I'm wondering how that will, pan out long term here. But everything else, they knocked out of the park, and they are going to have a good team this year. So
I really like it because it was, we used a draft pick on this guy. We saw they had to have seen something in him last year to say, okay, let's run it back with this. Let's focus more so on signing guys in the defensive area,
maybe
guys that can make him better. But with the knowledge that we're going to be run focused, why would we go out and get a good quarterback at this point?
I was just going to say, maybe Brock Purdy was the reason. Maybe they saw Mr. Irrelevant go out there and get them to the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
And they were like, we got a guy.
Arthur Smith reinvented Ryan Tannehill. So, I mean, he has good experience with quarterbacks.
But they're going to run the ball. That's their bread and butter. So
that's the bread and butter right there. same thing with Tennessee. I mean, isn't that what kind of helped rejuvenate Tannehill in the first place? The fact that they had a fucking monster in the backfield with them.
Yeah, I want to say Arthur Smith was even part of that tandem for like a season or two that dominated the league when it was Henry and DeMarco Murray on the Titans.
Oh, that's right.
It's actually a great combo for a couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, well, number one, off-season champion of the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers. They got the coach figured out. I think they got a good coach who had a bad, unlucky run with the Colts at the end of his career. Yeah. They got the quarterback of the future, hopefully, if it works out. They solidify all over the place. They were already kind of flirting with playoffs last year and just beefed up. And that's really all you can ask for a team that had a couple areas they needed to address. They got rid of McCaffrey, but they bring in Miles Sanders, who's definitely not Christian McCaffrey, but he's still a serviceable back, and he's got history with Deuce Staley. So, and the receivers outside of Adam Thielen are kind of a big question mark for me, but I'm sure they'll make it work. So I put them number one.
I put them in number one because this team that I feel like has been on the cusp of having a good team for the last couple of years now. I feel like every year we come into the NFL season talking about Carolina. Don't sleep on Carolina. They could be good this year. McCaffrey stays healthy. Who knows? The defense is good. I feel like it's been that for the past 3 seasons. The big question mark has always been the quarterback position. And this year they finally said, fuck it. Let's trade up to number one. Let's go get the guy. And let's give him a good opportunity. Let's put him behind a good line. Let's bring back, Bozeman. Let's go sign McCray. Let's go sign Irving.
They drafted Icky last year, so they already got someone there too.
Exactly. They said, let's go get him some receivers that have played with good quarterbacks. Let's go get him a tight end that has played with MVPs before. Let's go get him Adam Thielen, who's been in the league for centuries and is a good pass catcher and knows how to work with quarterbacks to get in a rhythm. DJ Chark, same thing, unproven guy. Let's go get Miles Sanders, who is just in the Super Bowl and knows how to run a dynamic offense where the quarterback can be mobile. They said, let's go get Frank Reich, who was considered a quarterback whisperer when he had Carson Wentz and had Andrew Luck, and has been in the playoffs. It has experience with the playoffs. It really was like an all-out, this is now our time to solidify this, and let's go try to win something, and let's try to do this right.
Well, then let me ask you this: with them, I don't. We need to talk about the other teams, but just with them, because having a rookie quarterback making the playoffs is a pretty high bar. It's not easy to do that. Mac Jones did it. I think he was the last guy to go do it. Yeah. If you want to count Brock Purdy, okay, but he did play the whole year. It's a high bar.
Yeah.
But do you think Bryce Young is enough? We don't know anything about him really, but do you think that they have what it takes to get there, even though they've got a rookie at quarterback?
I think if Bryce Young plays average, I think they have a very good chance of winning this division.
Alrighty. NFC South.
Yeah. What a roller coaster this division was. Honestly, after going through this, I feel like this is one of the divisions that, and this is purely carried by Carolina and Atlanta, that have one of the better off seasons.
Agreed.
The thing that really weighs them down is the 2 other teams that I feel like did not have good off seasons.
Yeah, Tampa especially.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's close the show out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Gridiron Zeros podcast.
We are 25 away from 100. How about that?
Oh, yeah, 3/4 of the way there.
Probably hit 100 this regular season.
Yeah,
right?
We definitely should.
Yeah.
I'm blanking. Follow us on YouTube, Gridiron Zeros. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Twitter, etc., etc. You guys all know the shindig by now. Gridiron Zeros on all social platforms. I don't have a fucking lock of the week for this week.
We should have. if we had recorded last week, we should have done something for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. That would have been fun.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah. Missed opportunity. It's all good.
Damn.
It's summertime, folks. We're starting to ramp back into form here, but it has been
It's a
very
right now.
It's been a very calm off season. So
Yeah, and
for us,
it's been very activity filled. We're very busy gentlemen in the summer because we live in Michigan, and that's when we can go do things. So don't blame us. We will be in full form, back to full form by the time preseason starts. Not the season, preseason starts, because there will be a lot to talk about then.
Oh, shucky, ducky, quack, quack.
You got anything else?
The NFL made a mistake by giving the Jets Hard Knocks.
Didn't even touch on that.
No, but who gives a fuck? That was a horrible decision by the NFL.
I bet you Rodgers is barely in it. Calling that now.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not going to try and piss him off.
Honestly,
you know?
I had completely forgotten about that, too. Yeah, although that guy does love the smell of his own farts. So
that's very true.
He might like to see himself on TV and start spreading the gospel of why COVID vaccines are killing people.
You serious?
All right, well, that's it for this week. We'll catch you next week when we talk about the NFC North and NFC East.
Later.
More like NFC Beast, right? Bye.